Hello, everyone. It's Tamer Al-Nakal from Cambridge. Again, we're going to today start our new lecture, carrying on the series of lectures. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is 7 o'clock in Jerusalem. It's 5 here. In the next 30 seconds, we will start our new session. Again, this is a series of lectures that I'm discussing a little bit about basics of researching and how to simply start writing your first article. Today, our topic will be about literature review and searching. Basically, it is a series of lectures provided every Saturday. We started with introduction. We had a bit of basics statistics divided in 2 lectures. And then we had a critical appraisal last weekend. This weekend, we will talk a little bit about literature review and literature search. Hopefully taking us to 2 more lectures, where at the end of it, you should be able to grasp the basics of how to write an article and how to perform it. I would kindly ask you all to mute your phones and microphones, and we shall start fairly soon. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can always pop into the chat box, which is just around here, and you can always ask your questions. Sessions are usually interactive in Arabic or in English, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Anyway, so I'll just start zooming my pictures. Okay, so simply putting it, after talking about how we critically appraised a paper, and all the lectures are available on YouTube. You can stream it on a channel that I've created. So today I'm going to discuss what is meant by literature review or search. So this represents basically the current knowledge known about a certain topic. يعني أي شيء that people have done in the past about a certain topic that you are looking forward to researching. حيكون موجود يا في الكتب, either in books or journals, في المجلات العلمية, or even online nowadays. So of course, this represents the current knowledge about a certain topic. They are secondary sources, and if you write a literature review, that means you are not reporting a new or original experimental work, but rather you are searching whatever has been said and putting it into the article. If you want to write only an article about literature review, so that will be your literature review article, which is a secondary article. However, we usually tend to do a literature search, يعني بنبحث بإيش اللي صار بالسنين اللي ما قبل ذلك, to perform our kind of idea about what we are trying to search. So for example, if you're searching about COVID, you would search online what has been so far done in regards to this. And this is, of course, your basis in researches, and you'd be able through this to start writing your introduction and outline your discussion. As you know from previously, your research article will compose of the abstract, of course, title, abstract, and then you have the introduction, method, results, conclusion, and of course discussion in the middle, and then at the end you will have all your references. So that literature searching will help you in formulating that. However, if it's not an original research that you're doing, so let's say you're just literature searching and then you're writing a review about everything that's been talked or have been researched about a certain topic, we call it a literature review article. Anyway, without any further ado, where do you start? So first, you have to choose a topic. Define your research question, of course, and decide the scope of your review itself. Ask yourself, were there any studies before done about this topic? How many articles do I want to narrow my research into? And of course, select where do you want to search. There are different places to search for previous research. يعني كل الأبحاث اللي اتعملت ما قبل ذلك, you can search them either in books or in databases. There is internet databases, زي ما كلكم عارفين, there is something called Pubmed, Scope, and then you can conduct your searches and find the literature. And of course, that would be your review. So databases, you may have data like Pubmed, which most of you are familiar with. There are other databases like Scopus, and there are other databases in basics of science or engineering, etc., etc. But those are like the two biggest databases that you can use. So what is the principle? ما هي القاعدة in literature searching before writing an article? Your whole idea is to make whatever you've known or what's known in the world as narrow as possible. يعني you are trying to narrow down to get the cream a la cream of all what has been said in that topic. So simply putting, from general to specifics, and from a topic background to supporting studies. Yani, we know that there, for example, there is COVID. We know that it's transmitted by, for example, droplets, but you want to know a little bit more. So you will start finding supporting studies in regards to that. So again, so you have to always have a scope and structure in your mind. You have a good background of it, and then you narrow it slowly by categories, which you will see in a second. And then you would choose the studies that are closest to your research, and you will include these studies in your references. Yeah, and that also will help you in stating final hypotheses that you will use throughout. So how to search? Searching is usually using keywords, yeah? So always, for example, my question is, what is the incidence of COVID-19 related DVT, which is deep vein thrombosis, or PE, pulmonary embolism? Is there any relation? يعني أنا كنت في مستشفى وفي المستشفى خلال الكورونا I found that, for example, we have higher incidence of DVTs and PEs in patients. And incidentally looking at it, most of them had COVID-19. So I asked my question, is there any relation in between COVID and higher incidence, for example, of DVT and PE? So my hypothesis, the null hypothesis, and we said the null hypothesis is the hypothesis that says that there is no significant difference, no relation between both of them, yeah? So I would need to do my research, whether somebody has already seen it in America or somebody has commented on this in China or in Africa or in Asia or any other country or any other university. So you may use books, but because this is a very hot topic, it's usually not in books. But you may use, for example, all the journals that have been published so far. And usually journals are online, which means that they are on Pubmed. And using Pubmed as a search or keywording using and or. يعني مثلا you would put in brackets, always in between brackets, some keywords so that you can refine your search into narrower. So for example, my main thing is COVID-19 in between brackets, or coronavirus, because that's the other name of COVID-19, isn't it? And so that would automatically, the computer will understand that everything before and should be included with the next bracket. So in here it would be DVT or PE or coagulopathy, because that's kind of my mindset. Or you can say deep venous thrombosis or pulmonary embolism or coagulopathy. It's the same, yeah? And then you would hit search. So when you hit search, you find that you have identified, so that's the first phase called identification. You've identified through all your different bases, number of articles. Let's say, and that's only hypothetical, يعني had بس افتراضي, okay? Let's say you found 689 articles على PubMed, all right? So now you'd go through screening. So you'd move into the screening phase. بعد ما حطيت الكيوردز and you got the number of whole articles, you start screening. هتبدأ تمسح شوي شوي. By what? First by titles, so that you avoid any duplicates. أحيانا بيكون إشي مرتين على PubMed, so that you have removed, for example, after removing all the duplicates, you found that you ended up with 550 articles. And then you start carrying on screening by abstract, whether the articles themselves are related to your question or far away from the question. And then by screening, reading the abstracts of these 550 quickly, you find that actually the relevant ones are around 300. So you've excluded 200. And then that's the screening. Now you have all the articles that you think that they are kind of in connection to your hypothesis or question that you are asking. So now you go into the eligibility phase, which means which articles are actually genuinely eligible. And then you would start screening by full text. So it's a kind of a tedious work, and sometimes it can take a lot of work to do it. And you'd screen the 300, download all the papers, and read them through quickly, thoroughly, and then you'd know, okay, this article actually can be included, and that not. So after doing full text readings of all of these articles, you find out that only 50 are actually relevant to your questions. So you've excluded the other 250. Forget about this number. I'm putting other hypothetical numbers, yeah? افتراضي. So you ended up at the end with what? 50 articles that are eligible for your study. From those 50, further assessing the factor, influencing, etc., forget about all the written in here. Yeah, those articles that you will include will be only 40. So the final articles related to COVID and DVT in PE that I will include in my study will be the 40 articles. And those usually I tend to put them in a folder, and I will call them, for example, COVID-19 research that I'm conducting. And all the 40 articles will be in there. I highlight them using PDF, or you can actually print them and highlight the things that you like. So the knowledge, something that you've liked in introduction, something that you've liked, or something that is relevant to you in the discussions. And that will be the meat to your article writing. Yeah. So why is this important? Once you have got all your articles, the relevant one that you will include into the study, you will read them. So your knowledge about the topic will be actually broad, and you will know everything or most of the things that has been or have been actually researched into that topic. And this, of course, will help you formulate your introduction and your discussion, because you will be knowledgeable of what other peoples have argued or what have they discussed. Yeah. So let's say here, after reading all my articles, the 40 articles, I started writing or typing the introduction either on a piece of paper or on Word document. So I wrote the following introduction. COVID-19 confirmed infections. Of course, this is before, this is kind of a draft, yeah? In the UK over the last 6 months was found to be 420,000 cases with more than 41,000 deaths. And then I'll put a reference. يعني هنا راح احط reference من الارتكل اللي جبت الكلام هاد منه. So that will be reference number 1. So for example, it will be number 1. Yeah, it was found that our hospital X. So for example, in our hospital where I work, that DVT, and because it's the first time I'm writing DVT, I always define it. So deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism PE incidence during the pandemic was higher than previously. So before the pandemic. Literature review was conducted. Okay, so I said using Prisma flow, which is the flow that I showed you in the earlier slides, and revealed a total of 40 articles. So now you're showing that you have done a systematic kind of review and literature review of all the articles that have been published about this. That suggested, for example, a possible association between COVID-19 and coagulopathy. X, Y, and Z et al. So this is an author, yeah? So let's say if you find Summers or somebody who's Simmons, yeah? And authors, you can write it as Simmons et al. Et al يعني وآخرون, yeah? And the rest of the authors suggested that COVID-19 increased the risk by 2 folds, mainly due to activation of severe sepsis. And I'm writing all this from what I read, yeah? And then I put the reference. So the reference to that article that I took this information from. But of course, I'm rephrasing what they said. I'm not copying and not pasting, because I don't want to do plagiarism. يعني مش ما بديش أعمل قرصنة أو أخذ حقوق ملكية أي شخص آخر. All I'm trying to take is that whatever they found in my own words, and then I'm putting in brackets the reference, so that I'm referencing this to them, because that's their work, isn't it? And then from this, I say our aim is to identify whether there is an increased risk of DVT-PE in COVID-19 cases. Yeah? من الحالات اللي عنا. Of course, this is just a hypothesis. يعني had imaginary question, and this is an imaginary introduction and an imaginary case. So it's not something that is actually, you know, I've done it yet. So I know today is a bit of a different lecture. So today your homework will be to go to PubMed to do a literature search in the about the following keywords, which is COVID-19 or coronavirus and DVT or PE or coagulopathy. And then you would need to identify all the relevant articles by title and abstract. I don't want you to read all the full text. This is just to get you going so that when you start your actual project, you are able of conducting such review. Write down the literature search number of possible relevant articles and submit the number to the following. And you will have, of course, like you're used to, a survey monkey that you can go into and answer the questions about your literature. Or you can scan the QR code which is in there using your ordinary phones. Now, this is not the end of the lecture. I want to show you how to do it. So this is, simply putting, this is my PubMed. So first things first, I will close the presentation. So of course, our next presentation will be English language and researching. And meanwhile, I'll show you how I do it in real time. So I'll put a new folder and I'll call it COVID, yeah? COVID-19, and open it up for yourself. So you have your own space now for researching. I'll go to my internet website and I type PubMed, yeah? And you can do your own logins, by the way, even if you wouldn't have full access, but at least you can log in as with your email, Gmail account, etc. And then I will simply put so copy and paste the keywords and search for it, yeah? So copy and paste it and then search. So I'm waiting just for it to load. Okay, so I've got 710 results. That means from 2001 until 2020, which is recently, this is the all things that have been done in regards to this kind of topic that I've used the keywords for. So now you can sort it by different options. I'll show you. You can sort it here by text availability, whether they are available by abstract only. And then you can look into what are the things that you can read the abstract for, or you can actually see which ones have free full text. So if you want to download it for free, so that narrows you down a bit. But of course you can't, you have to read all the relevant articles. So first things first, after I've put all these, what I do, I start screening by topic. So this, for example, is coagulopathy and antiphospholipid antibodies in patients with COVID. Is it relevant to my question? Maybe. So I'm just gonna put a tick. And it shows here that one item has been selected. Again, autopsy finding in venous with COVID-19, a prospective study. Is it relevant? I'm not sure, so I'm just gonna tick it, yes. And you do the same here, for example, COVID-19 and its implications for thrombosis. Okay, so this is an article that most probably is gonna be very relevant, so I'll tick it. And you'd go with the same for all your articles. And this is called screening by title only. Then after you've screened by title, so you've finished all your topics, and of course you can show more and you will see all the results. You will find that it narrows down from 700, for example, to 500 or 400. And then you may use different also, just to make you aware, if you're looking for literature, let's say in the last 5 years only, or in the last year, then that will, of course, differ, not in Corona pandemics papers, because Corona just happened this year. So we know everything, all research is being done this year. So that's why it's called a hot topic, which means any article actually that you will write about Corona will be easily published, yeah? Because we don't know a lot about this virus. So simply putting, it will be in the last year, everything that has been published about this, and you will see that it's actually the same number. Probably there is a few articles that have been published at the end of the last year. Anyway, and then you can stratify by article types, which is not relevant in your case. But if you're doing a systematic review, of course, a systematic review is usually for clinical trials and the randomized controlled trials and case controls or cohorts. So you would select, because you don't want to include, for example, case series or case reports. Anyway, I'm just going through the options that you may use whilst doing the search itself. And of course, you can email or save or send to all the ones that you choose, yeah? So once you've chosen, you can send them to your email so that they are there and it was exported as a Word document. So after doing your search, you've done all the screening by title. You're going next into screening by abstract. So let's say you've clicked on this one, particular one, and you've opened it up. So next, what you need to do is simply putting read the abstract. So you will start screening by abstract. And you will read the abstract and find that actually this abstract is relevant to your study. Yeah? And you may read the whole article. After screening all of the articles by abstract, you find, for example, the number of the articles that you will include in this session will drop from 500 to actually 300. And then all you need to do, of course, not for the homework, but for real life, you would go and read it. So always here on the right side, you will find full text links. Yeah, and you can download it. So if you click on it, it will open the article itself, and you can see it either in any kind of printer-friendly e-beta or pub reader, or actually you can just look it up online and you can read the whole article, as you can see. And like any article, it's gonna have an introduction, and you can see those are the references, yeah? And if you just scroll around, it will tell you from where they took that kind of information. So let's say I liked some kind of information in here, and I want to cite. كلمة cite بمعنى you want to reference it, yeah? So that means if you click on this button in here in cite, you will find how to cite it, and it will tell you that citation text is like this, and you can actually copy paste it into your Word document that you have created. So going back to the presentation, when I started to write my introduction, instead of putting reference 1, of course, I can put just number 1 now, yeah? And then at the end of the article, where I will have, I'll show you again, I will insert, of course, that will be my Word document, yeah? So I would put here, for example, references, yeah? And then I put number 1, and then you would paste, yeah? Anyway, just to show you how to do it, and that automatically would look like, okay, so this actually paragraph or this sentence, I've taken it from this reference, yeah? And you can always auto-correct it, yeah? So you know that this is actually the reference. And it always shows the authors. So this is the main author. So if you go back, it will show you the author, and then all the other authors, and the title itself, and at the end you will have a DOI number and a Pubmed ID number, which you were using in your previous articles to find the article, yeah? So that's how to actually cite manually, yeah? There is other ways of citing. There are programs that can help you in citing. One of those is called EndNote. I highly encourage you to download it on your computers, because during our next sessions, that will help you in formulating and starting your first introduction in writing. Yeah, and again, you can always look into the sections in here and references. You can always see what is the conflict of interest if somebody has funded it. You see that there are some personal fees, for example, that, you know, so that's when we speak about bias, yeah? So going back to this particular article, the nice thing about PubMed, it always tells you about articles that are cited with the similar kind of approach or similar articles in PubMed, yeah? And that can help you in formulating the whole kind of picture. Always when you are citing, or before deciding your 40 articles that you will include, you have to critically kind of appraise in your mind. So you know that this is published in a journal called Blood, and it's quite new. And you know that the authors, you can know better. So you'll know that the authors, for example, here are from Harvard Medical School. And you know that, for example, their study is this way, and this method is this way. So once you critically appraise it, you'd know, okay, so this article is actually a good article, or less of a good article, yeah? Or actually the article is bad and rubbish, and you will not include it in your study because it's not relevant, yeah? So high impact articles doesn't necessarily mean that they are great articles. You have to read how they have done it, what's the methodology of it, and whether they have actually used the correct test. And all these factoring in, you will start writing your introduction, and then you will start writing your discussion once you have your own results. Yeah. So once, for example, you've done all your data collection in the hospital, and then you want to start writing up your introduction, then you can use all the articles that you found and the information and cite it. So for example, like here you have the introduction, and then of course I'll just make this smaller so that you can see better. So after that you would go, for example, towards your method, and then you would have your results section, and then you'd have your discussion section, and then you'd have your conclusion section. Yeah. And of course, you'd have the references. And this would be done on a Word document. We will go through this together in the next session. For this session, all I'm interested in that you know how to do a simple literature search and what's meant by referencing, how to screen the articles, and the basics of PubMed ABC and how to find it, and how to find an article and how to download it if it's for free. Of course, if it's not for free, there are various websites that you can use, or you can use your logins from your hospitals if they provide Athens logins, or from your universities. Of course, if anyone is struggling with articles, we may be able to help them with gaining the articles, or you may ask other colleagues who have access. So this is kind of to conclude today's session, which is slightly different to each session that you have had, because it's a simpler one. It is a straightforward one, but this is the meat of your kind of basics of researching and how to start writing it as a student, or even as a junior doctor, or even as a senior doctor. That's how we would use it. So I highly encourage you to do the homeworks, because that would show how people are engaging with these sessions. And at the end, hopefully, we will get a few of those who have been engaging throughout all homeworks to work on an exciting project, hopefully. At this stage, I would like to open up the chat. If anyone has got any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Today's session is a briefer session, and I hope it's a breather as well. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in. Otherwise, we will be finishing in the next 2 minutes or so. Don't forget, you can scan the QR code using the mobile phones, or you can simply go into the SurveyMonkey, and I would be more than happy to send you the PowerPoint presentations as well. This lecture will be uploaded onto YouTube, where you can revise it and share it with others who would be also interested in it. So far, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's brief session, and I hope that you've learned at least 1 or 2 things, and will be prepared for next session, where you will start writing your first article together. Again, I would like to thank you for attending, and I hope that you have a good day. Take care. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.